It started like any other broadcast, a panel of seasoned hosts, a comfortable studio setting, and the familiar rhythm of hot takes and hearty applause. But within 72 hours, that familiar stage became the epicenter of a media earthquake. Caroline Leavitt had already stunned the nation once with her $800 million lawsuit against The View. It was bold, explosive, and instantly controversial. But no one, not even seasoned insiders at ABC, could have predicted what came next. Just when the network was still reeling from the first legal hit, Caroline filed a second lawsuit, this time with even sharper teeth and a mountain of fresh evidence. What triggered it? A new episode of The View aired while the first case was still pending. Despite the legal storm surrounding them, the host didn't just reference Caroline, they went all in, mocking, taunting, and repeating the very behavior the first lawsuit had outlined in detail. What was meant to be a cheeky segment quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous: admissible evidence. Viewers watched as Joy Behar smirked and lobbed the first insult, calling Caroline Trump's Gen Z talking head. The crowd laughed, the panel nodded, and Sunny Hostin followed up by calling the lawsuit a GOP choreographed stunt. Then came Whoopi Goldberg, the eye of the legal hurricane, shifting her glasses and dropping the one-liner that flipped the entire situation on its head. She's lucky we even let her on the show. That moment, those few seconds of live TV, became the trigger for what legal analysts are calling one of the most significant retaliatory defamation cases in media history. Because behind the scenes, Caroline's legal team wasn't laughing. They were scrubbing every frame, dissecting the audio, and stitching it all into a second complaint that landed in federal court with a thud felt across the industry. Unlike the first case, this wasn't just about reputational harm. It was about proving intentional retaliation. A legal missile fired in full view of an audience of millions. The complaint left no room for interpretation. It accused the host not only of repeating defamatory remarks, but of escalating them in full knowledge of ongoing litigation. The charges: malicious repetition, career sabotage, reckless lies, and calculated humiliation. To back it up, Caroline's team didn't just rely on transcripts, they brought in commentary from media ethicists, legal scholars, and even a former federal judge, all united in disbelief. One analyst called The View's actions astonishingly reckless, especially given their active involvement in a defamation case. Inside ABC, chaos took hold. Emergency meetings were called. Sponsors, once proudly aligned with the show, began backing away in silence. A leaked internal memo confirmed what insiders already suspected. ABC had warned the panel to steer clear of inflammatory remarks. The memo was blunt. "We asked the panel to avoid inflammatory comments on this case. They didn't listen." That single line summed up the network's catastrophe, a fire they saw coming yet failed to extinguish. Suddenly, the atmosphere inside the studio changed. What was once the energetic pulse of daytime TV transformed into a battlefield of blame and paranoia. Staffers whispered about severance packages. Veteran producers reportedly exploded in meetings, furious not at the lawsuits, but at the very hosts who dragged them into this legal inferno. "This is what happens when no one listens," one producer shouted, slamming a folder to the ground. It wasn't gossip anymore. It was war. Security doubled, not due to physical threats, but because of the mounting backlash. Emails, tweets, phone calls. Outrage was erupting in real time. Loyal viewers, the very ones who once defended the show's boldness, were now turning against it. One viral comment hit especially hard. "This used to be a show about truth. Now, it's just a hit job with a laugh track." The damage wasn't just reputational, it was structural. ABC's ad sales team saw a sharp decline. One insider claimed a 7-figure contract vanished within 24 hours of the second lawsuit's filing. And at the center of it all, Caroline Leavitt remained silent. No press conferences, no victory lap, no interviews. Her silence became a weapon more powerful than any monologue. Legal observers say it's a masterstroke, letting the facts speak louder than any rebuttal. While ABC floundered, Caroline stood still, watching the empire unravel without saying a word. The pressure inside ABC's executive wing reached a boiling point. According to multiple leaks, 3 options were now being considered, and none were pretty. The first, suspend Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny temporarily. It would serve as a symbolic gesture, a signal of responsibility. But critics both inside and outside the company say it's far too little, far too late. The second option, settle both lawsuits with heavy checks, public apologies, and on-air retractions. It would be expensive, humiliating, and possibly futile if public trust can't be rebuilt. And then there's the nuclear option, pull the plug entirely. Cancel The View, rebrand the time slot, and try to salvage what's left of ABC's legacy. Executives are reportedly split. Some believe the show can be salvaged with the right messaging and legal maneuvering. Others argue that the damage is permanent, that the brand has become synonymous not with bold commentary, but with reckless disregard. But while corporate leaders debated in closed-door meetings, the internet exploded. Hashtags like Jack Caroline Strikes Back and Defend the Truth dominated Twitter for days. TikTokers stitched together clips of the broadcast with legal commentary. YouTube creators hosted live panels featuring attorneys, PR experts, and political analysts. Combing through the filings, a surprising shift began to take hold. Left-leaning voices who once defended The View began to fracture. One prominent MSNBC analyst, known for her progressive takes, shocked her followers with a tweet that read, "Caroline may be controversial, but she's exposing a media problem we've ignored too long." The post went viral, gathering tens of thousands of retweets and a cascade of uncomfortable questions now rippling through public discourse. What makes this story so seismic isn't just the lawsuits, it's what they represent. For years, shows like The View operated inside a media bubble. They delivered personal attacks, controversial takes, and loaded rhetoric, all under the protection of applause, favorable coverage, and assumed immunity. But Caroline pierced that bubble. And now, the spotlight has turned inward onto the very people who once wielded it freely. This case, legal scholars say, could change everything. It might redefine how defamation law applies in the digital era. If Caroline wins, the threshold for what qualifies as reckless disregard for the truth could be lowered, putting YouTubers, streamers, podcasters, and influencers in the same legal crosshairs as legacy media. The implications are vast. If the court sides with Caroline, it could set precedent that opinionated media comment. As ABC's internal machine whirred in disarray, public trust was already evaporating. Viewers who once tuned in for fiery debates and political banter now stared in disbelief at a brand unraveling before their eyes. The View, long a staple of daytime television, was no longer seen as a talk show. It had become a courtroom case study in real time, broadcast live and dissected frame by frame. The irony? The same media power that once protected the show now magnified its fall. Every word, every smirk, every dismissive laugh became evidence, recorded, time-stamped, and added to a growing legal arsenal. Within days of the second lawsuit filing, internal ABC chats, once reserved for scheduling and promos, turned into encrypted whispers and panic-stricken memos. Legal teams demanded round-the-clock updates. HR departments braced for crisis fallout. Production assistants spoke in hushed tones, wondering not if but when the show would be pulled. And behind closed doors, a digital crime scene was forming. Producers scouring old transcripts, emails, backstage footage, anything that could be used to demonstrate compliance or, worse, negligence. And then came the sponsors. Silent but swift. One by one, major advertisers began distancing themselves from The View, with some issuing blunt statements. "We do not associate with active defamation litigation." Another long-term partner reportedly terminated a 7-figure contract. With no warning, the studio's marketing team tried to manage the damage, but with each pulled ad, the reality set in deeper. This wasn't just a PR issue. It was financial hemorrhaging, and it was accelerating. Even as ABC tried to control the message, public sentiment had already flipped. Comments poured in on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. If this was reversed politically, there would be firings already. This isn't bold media, it's bullying with a platform. The internet was no longer a passive audience, it had become the jury. Then came the most damning revelation of all, a leaked internal memo from ABC's executive wing. Verified by multiple independent sources, the document stated clearly that the panel had been explicitly told to avoid inflammatory comments related to Caroline Leavitt or the ongoing lawsuit. And yet, the broadcast went forward. Joy cracked jokes. Sunny rolled her eyes. Whoopi smirked and delivered the final blow. That memo became the smoking gun, the irrefutable proof that ABC knew the risks and failed to act. Now, every move is under scrutiny. Social media watchdogs are archiving segments, lawyers are monitoring uploads, political commentators from across the spectrum are chiming in, not just about Caroline's case, but about the broader collapse of media ethics. Even platforms that once shielded The View are no longer echoing support. CNN ran a neutral headline. MSNBC remained awkwardly silent. And the New York Times? Quiet inquiries, off-the-record interviews, and a noticeable delay in publishing anything at all. Because this isn't just another celebrity clash or political squabble, it's a battle over who controls the narrative and who pays when that power is abused. And Caroline, with calm resolve, has flipped the rules. She didn't walk into this war with tabloid drama or emotional pleas. She walked in with filings, with witnesses, with a meticulously documented timeline that left no room for plausible deniability. And the timing? Deliberate. Filing the second lawsuit while the first was still active wasn't just bold, it was strategic. It showed the court, the media, and the public that this wasn't a one-off grudge. It was a pattern, a culture, an institutional arrogance so deep that even facing an $800 million lawsuit wasn't enough to prompt restraint. In doing so, Caroline may have cracked open the most uncomfortable truth of all, that some media giants operate on the assumption that consequences don't apply to them, that they can spin, smear, and mock with impunity, that apologies are optional, that narrative, not facts, hold the final word. Not anymore. Already, digital content creators are taking notes. YouTubers are rewriting their scripts. Podcasters are consulting legal teams. TikTok creators are being warned by managers to review terms of service and reconsider what commentary might land them in hot water. This ripple effect, triggered by a single lawsuit, is sending shockwaves across the internet. Legal experts suggest this could reshape the future of content creation. The phrase reckless disregard for the truth may soon carry a heavier legal price. The once loose boundary between commentary and defamation might finally be enforced with teeth. And for a media ecosystem built on opinion, outrage, and virality, that shift would be monumental. And yet, through all of this, Caroline Leavitt remains quiet. No social media victory dances, no gloating interviews, just silence. A silence that has become louder than the televised chaos she's left in her wake. Analysts say it's the most effective strategy in play. Because while ABC spins, stumbles, and struggles to stay ahead of the backlash, Caroline doesn't have to lift a finger. The facts are marching forward without her. The future of The View now hangs in limbo. Ratings have dipped, morale has tanked. Trust has evaporated. One source close to the production described the atmosphere as radioactive. Another said bluntly, "We used to joke about lawsuits. Now we're packing boxes. It's no longer a question of if heads will roll, but how many and when. And at the center of it all, the viewers have become participants. Their outrage fuels the fire. Their posts amplify the fallout. Their commentary now shapes the narrative faster than any official press release. This isn't just Caroline versus The View. This is the internet versus legacy media. A generational collision between new voices demanding accountability and old institutions refusing to adapt. That's why this moment matters. Not just for Caroline, not just for Whoopi, Joy, or Sunny, but for every person who's ever been dismissed, mocked, or silenced by a media system too insulated to self-correct. For years,